still won't be doing that sometime in the not very distant future. You know, I think 2016 is going to be a great year for Republicans, and 2014, with Tom Schweik leading the ticket in our state, is going to be a tremendous year for our state. You know, Tom Schweik is willing to call them like he sees them. And he sees them pretty straight and down the middle, and that's good for Missourians, and they know that. Having Tom at the top of that ticket is going to matter. Our legislative delegation, all the Republicans got together in Washington this week. I know Blaine is here. We were all together this week. We are doing everything we can to fight back what's happening in Washington. You know, the good news for me every morning is we're one day closer to the end of the Obama administration. And I actually think that's having some impact on people's decision making. As I talk to people, you can almost tell, well, didn't know for sure, still don't know for sure, but it looks like we might survive this. And one of the reasons we might survive it is that people are now willing, even in the press, a few of them, to look back at what happened in the Obama administration in the first term. I just heard on the news on the way up here that that almost sounds like I'd be making this up, but I'm not. Just heard this morning on the way up here a number I hadn't heard before, and I think what I heard was that the IRS administrator had signed into the White House not over 100 times, but over 500 times. Over 500 times. You know how many times the administrator of the IRS for George Bush went to the White House? Once. Once. Now, why in the world would he must be either an unbelievably entertaining, unbelievably good company, or they're talking about him to him about what's happening at the IRS. And if I had to guess, I'd guess that the answer is the third. What can we do with the IRS to look at these groups more closely that don't agree with us? And they clearly, the pro-Constitution groups, the pro-patriot groups, the pro-Israel groups, the pro-family groups, all had a level of scrutiny that you and I know they shouldn't have had. And you and I know they can't defend. And you and I know it was wrong. And you know what's wrong? What's most troubling about this is that in any government, you know, governments in our democracies can rule by fear. Governments in our democracies can only rule by trust. This is really a big issue. And all the things that are being talked about in the country today would be talked about in a different way if people trusted the government. They'd be talked about in a different way if people thought, if the government's being fair with me, I'll be fair with the government. You know, I see a lot of people have these fair tax stickers on, including we all want a fair tax. You know, a fairer system, in the United States, whether you like the old system or not, it has probably been the biggest voluntary compliance with a tax system in the history of the world. Because the American people thought the government is going to be fair with me, whether I like the tax system or not, I'm going to try to comply. But once they decide that the government's not fair with them, that system that hugely is dependent on people voluntarily complying gets much and much more troublesome. Gets much and much where people think the government's not treating me fair, or everybody else isn't meeting the same rules I'm meeting. Or when the IRS shows up before a House or Senate committee, they say, I didn't do anything wrong, but I don't want to talk about it anymore. What do you think? What kind of defense do you think that would be if you were having an IRS audit? I didn't do anything wrong, but I don't want to talk to you about it anymore. Well, trust the NSA. Now, I was on the Senate Intelligence Committee for a couple of years. I was on the House Intelligence Committee for a long time. I have some familiarity with these programs. And my view is there is no reason for the United States of America to have everybody's phone records ever and to keep them for private. There's just no reason. Frankly, it makes us not worth it. focused here is on safety. You have that, having that much information is almost like having no information. And figuring out anything that prevents a terror event from that information, I believe to be almost impossible. Now, if events occurred, you might be able to go back and find out who the terrorist was talking to. You might retrospectively be able to find out things, but we're much better off to focus our efforts on trying to prevent things from happening rather than trying to piece them together after they happen. There's something I'm not the greatest computer expert in the world, but those of you in here who are, and there are a few people in here who are, there's something called false positives, where if you have so much information, you're constantly having the computer come up with things that it shouldn't come up with. And if you have all the phone calls in the world, you're constantly drifting over into areas that lead you nowhere because you've got too much information. You know, we don't want to give up freedom for security. We want to maintain our freedom and maintain our security, and there are ways to do that. And we want to honor those people who work for us. We had a hearing last week in the Armed Services Committee, and one of the amendments that Mike Lee had that I was the most proud to vote for was the one that said chaplains can actually talk about their faith. Now, there are rules in the military now, everything is so PC, where chaplains can't talk about their faith. I frankly always had sort of a view of school prayer. Any prayer that doesn't offend anybody, probably not much of a prayer. Any chaplain that doesn't offend anybody, probably not much of a chaplain. Any chaplain that doesn't make you a little bit uncomfortable is probably not talking about the things you want a chaplain to talk about. You know, we can't become a value-neutral society and be who we are. We are who we are because we believe in values that you can build a society around. Values that you can build a family around. Values you can build a country around. Values you can build a democracy on. And we're in a big fight right now. But it's a fight we're going to win. It's a fight we're going to win. The American people have figured out that one side thinks that whatever the result is, no matter what you have to do to get there, it's okay. And our side doesn't believe that. There's one of the things that Ed's been supportive of so many things I've done, but one that I think he's been the most supportive of is when the Obama administration, in the rules on Obamacare, which by the way will be neither affordable nor provide more care. I've never thought it would, just the fundamental principles of it wouldn't work. And everybody had their IRS signs up again. When you think about turning healthcare records, insurance records over to the IRS, that doesn't make much sense to me. Never did, never will. But you know, the administration came out with some rules last year that really disrupted just the First Amendment faith principles, where they said, whether you believe in it or not, here's the insurance you have to offer. And this was not a debate about contraception or abortion or anything else. It was a debate about religious liberty. There's one company called Hobby Lobby. Most of you know about it. I was on the campus at Evangel University in Springfield yesterday. It's not my denomination, but they've been good friends of mine. Dr. Spence there, the second longest serving college president, University President of the United States, is retiring this year. I was by to see him. One of their biggest contributors to that school has been the Green family that owns Hobby Lobby. Now, in their particular faith view, they're not offended by contraception, so they've always put it in their healthcare policy for their employees. But they are offended by abortion, so they've never wanted to do that. And they're challenging this law in court. But you know what the penalty is for them if they don't comply? It's $100 a day per employee. Now listen to this carefully, because I want you to be able to repeat it to your friends. If you don't offer health insurance at all under Obamacare to your employees, you pay a penalty of $2,000 a year. If you don't offer exactly the insurance that Kathleen Sebelius thinks you should offer, you pay a penalty of $36,500 per employee per year. That sort of shows you where the government is headed. knows so much better than you do about what you do. If you don't do it exactly like the government says, then you really get penalized. If you don't do it at all, you get sort of penalized. But if you don't do it exactly like the government says, you get really penalized. When Rand Paul was in at the event we had in St. Louis, where I was able to introduce him, and he was talking about this fight that he and I had been in together that I led, he said, the choice here is, if you're a business person, you can either give up your business. Hobby Lobby penalties like $1 million a day. You can either give up your business to hold on to your faith, or you can give up your faith to hold on to your business. That's not a choice any American should ever have to make. It's not a choice that the Constitution allows. And I'm confident that with the current Supreme Court, when this gets to the Supreme Court, they will uphold the constitutional right to freedom of religion. Not so confident if there are one or two more Obama appointees on the Supreme Court by the time it gets to court. These are issues of they're issues of religious freedom, they're issues of what we can talk about, they're issues of who we can associate with. And we shouldn't let regulators, whether it's Kathleen Sebelius at HHS or the IRS deciding they're going to ask how many books and what books your not-for-profit might read. We cannot let this happen. We're in a fight about whether we're going to be the United States of America or not. You know, during the campaign, my little boy Charlie one day said, "Now, Dad, what is that that's in the bloodstream?" And I knew exactly what he was talking about. Some of you heard, President Reagan used to say that even in a country as great as ours, that you can't pass freedom along in the bloodstream. That every generation of Americans has to secure freedom for itself. This is our moment. These next two elections are critical. What we do in our state and our country matters. I am glad to be in this fight with you. Thank you all for being here.